concerning, this incident. Um, there we go. What I will say is this: is that let me turn that down. There we go. We're good. We're on.
Alrighty. Hey everybody. Welcome to some Wednesday night pub talk with Evan and Aaron. This is the Evan and Aaron show. Can be kind of a different format for tonight. We started this show to be a bit of it was a way for Evan and I to continue to talk to each other without being able to be in the pub and maintain that certain connection, but also talk a lot about how COVID was really, impacting our lives in different ways. We've talked about it from going to stores. We've talked about it from people who've had it. We've talked about how it's impacting our favorite entertainment and things of that nature. And it's really consumed us, but there's something that has, for the last couple of weeks, consumed me and consumed a lot of social media, and I think consumed a lot of people's mental space. And they're incidents that just, when you see them, when you see the footage and you hear the stories, you just absolutely cannot help but to be appalled. You've got the Ahmaud Arbery event, which actually happened in February, but we only learned about in probably the last month or so, which the video footage does not. I don't even know what could possibly have gone on before that would justify what I see in that video. But then we've had these additional instances of this just what appears to be an overly privileged woman in New York Central Park attempting to call the police on a man who was actually wanting her to put her dog on a leash. We've had the incident with the pastor who claimed he'd been kidnapped by two black men when in reality he'd been robbed while trying to meet up for sex with a Craigslist partner. And this woman who claimed that, again, two black men carjacked her, demanded drugs, and kidnapped her autistic child when in reality she had taken her child to the river and shoved him in herself, and he drowned. And now this most recent incident in Minneapolis with George Floyd, and there's the phone video footage being filmed as it happens, but there's also the surveillance video that shows prior to the arrest. I see a man who has been adequately detained by the police, taken down, he's handcuffed, he's no longer a threat, and he's got a knee in the back of his neck for minutes, and we watch a man's life spill out on the pavement. It is horrifying, and I'm angry about it. I'm overwhelmingly saddened by it. I struggle to comprehend this level of apparent injustice in this country. I have a lot of thoughts and feelings about it, but one thing I am not is a black man living in this country. I will never understand fully what seeing something like this on such a regular basis would do to a cultural psyche. Evan, you've been a leader of churches. You're a voice in a community. You're a historian. You teach, and you are a black man in America. How are you doing, and what are your thoughts when you continue to see this tragic violence on such a regular basis?
Well, first of all, just want to say, Aaron, that I think that it's incredibly poignant that we pause from our regular kind of programming. We talk about this. I mean, this is something that if anyone out there is in charge of any type of media platform and you're not talking about this event and what has gone on, you're not paying attention. You're not paying attention to people. You're not paying attention to what people are saying and what they're doing. And quite frankly, you are part of the problem. And I'm just going to lay that out there like this, is that, first of all, I don't obviously, represent, and we've joked about this before, Aaron, I don't represent all Black people. Like, there's not a monthly meeting that we all go to that is like, okay, let's all put out a statement and this is what we're going to say. But I will tell you the way I'm feeling right now. It's all too familiar for Black faces to get on TV and to say that we're angry. It's very familiar also to hear excuses like, well, if he would have just complied, or if he would have just, listened to the officers. And now the stuff that's happening in Minneapolis, there are people that are going to say, well, why are they looting? Why are they rioting? Why can't they just do, you know, peaceful, nonviolent type of protesting? The problem stems way, way, way back, because in America, this is our MO. This is what we do as America to a group of people that we are wanting to make sure stays subjugated. And this is what happens in abusive relationships, Aaron, is that the abuser always gives those who are abused just enough. Just enough. And then they say, you should be thankful that you got that. If you talk to people who are my age and my generation, Gen Xers, and you ask them, have things changed really from the time when you were a kid to now? My thought is, yeah, they have changed. And yes, we did have a Black president, which, by the way, I think was a gimme. I don't think we'll see a Black president in the near future again. And that's for another show. But I feel incredible anger. I feel incredible sadness. I feel incredible frustration because there is an entire segment of this population that didn't help, that built this country on the backs of their mothers and fathers and sons and daughters. There's an entire segment of this country who has been given false hope. We've been. I remember Dr. King saying that we've been given a bad check. And I'm not sure it's as much of a bad check as it is, no check. I think that it is bankruptcy that we've been given as far as a people. I guarantee you, in a couple of weeks, I guarantee you that this incident in a couple of weeks will be on the 6th, 7th page of the newspaper, or it'll be, a forgotten thing. The man was on the ground asking for air. And I want to emphasize the man, not the Black man, the man. The freaking man was on the ground, subdued. And I think it reveals a bigger problem that we have, Aaron. And the bigger problem that we have is that we as a society have bought into being scared of different segments of the population. We as an American society are scared of Muslims. And I say we because I think if there's a group that is promoting that, and a group that is, listening to that kind of hate, then yeah, that's part of who we are as the fabric of America. And there's no denying that. We can say, well, that's just a small little segment. Well, you know what? That small little segment still is a segment of who we are. Just because there's a little bit of my DNA that might be messed up doesn't mean that it doesn't affect my entire body. And so we have people who are scared of Muslims. We have people who are scared of Hispanics because they are going to, quote unquote, take our jobs. And so we need a wall. We have people who are still scared of African Americans. And it is quite evident, especially now. And I kind of hinted this to you, Aaron, as we've talked, and I'll I'll shut up because I want to kind of get what you got to think about this. Cause I honestly, we decided on this, Aaron, in over the past few days, I'm still processing, but we've talked about it before, in the fact that, as I'm walking down the street and as you're walking down the street, as as an incredible advocate and ally as you are, people still see a black man walking down the street. They don't see Evan and Aaron. I think that that's probably what's most scary about this whole thing for me, is that my education, my profession, that I try and hone and craft every day as a professor, all of that goes out the window if a police officer suspects me of anything. I don't get the shot. I don't get the benefit of the doubt. I just don't. And that is a sad and grim reality that we have in this country today, is that an educated human being, an educated man who has had to work his ass off all his life to get to where he's at, to have what he has now, it doesn't stand for anything in the eyes of justice.
Yeah.
Justice.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at right now. That's where I'm at. And I apologize if that's not, very coherent, and I've got more to say, but I want to shut up and also hear from you, man, because like I said, this thing it's not going to be solved by black people. We're not going to be able to solve this issue by ourselves. We're going to need allies, like you, Aaron, and like people who see this for what it is, and it is blind racism.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not blind. Sometimes it's just it's very, very 2020 vision type racism. So
well, I think that's exactly it. There is a certain level of institutionalized racism, institutionalized misogyny in this country.
Mm-hmm.
And at times it's subtle and at times it's overt, but to deny it is to put your head in the sand. I mean, we, as one example of how we just do not honor people the same way, we had, I'm trying to remember the statistic, I think something like 60,000 black men after World War II were denied the GI Bill.
Mm-hmm.
I tell you what,
frankly,
go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Okay. Well, it actually, that right there, historically, it led to a very, very distorted and unbalanced distribution of wealth.
Yeah.
Most Americans' wealth is wrapped up into what? Real estate.
Yeah.
And when you have these men who went away and served and sacrificed their bodies, come back, and not only be denied the GI Bill in order to get housing, but then when they're able to get housing, they're redlined out of an area that they know is going to be up and coming, and redlined into an area that's just for blacks. And so you are therefore ghettoized.
Yep.
That's hard to come back from. That's going to take several generations to come back from. And we're still digging out of that. And we can't understand, Aaron, as a country, we can't understand why we can't stop talking about race. Well, the reason why we can't stop talking about race is because it is at the core of most of the issues that we have as a nation.
Well, we've never atoned for it. It is America's original sin with slavery, and add into how we treated the Native Americans when we got here. And yeah, you can throw in the world was different then. It doesn't change the fact that at every turn, every opportunity we have had to atone for it as a nation, we have failed them. And we turned around and did the same thing. Yes, we freed the slaves. We fought a war that divided the country. And then we said, y'all get 40 acres and a mule. And 2 days later, that was annulled by a field marshal. Yep. So we have never sought to atone for it. And anytime there has been a concentrated accumulation of black wealth, is it what Redwood, Florida is a historically black
That's
community
one.
that was destroyed. And then you've got the particular
Greenwood.
part of Oklahoma City
Greenwood.
and or Oklahoma. And, you know, man, there's so many books y'all need to go out to read if you think we're talking bullshit here. But this is some institutionalized behavior that we have got to address. And for these specific incidents, nothing is going to change until the good police officers, the guys who joined the force to actually withhold the law on behalf of everybody, and not just a select few, stand up and say this is improper. I understand the brotherhood and the blue shield and the thin blue line and all that. And I will be the first to put my hand up and say that these guys are underpaid for everything we ask them to do. But think about it. Policing, education, and healthcare. 3 things that are absolutely fundamental necessities for a civil society to operate at its peak. And we don't make any of them a priority because they don't make money. So we don't fund police departments as much as we should, same way we don't fund schools and healthcare in the same way that we should. So you don't get some of, you're not going to lure a certain type of person to come do this. And I'm in no way impugning all police officers. I know plenty of fine men dressed in blue. I absolutely do.
Yep.
But if they remain silent in the face of events like this, and leadership doesn't say this is completely improper. I mean, why is this officer walking the street? Yes, they fired all 4 of those guys. Hurrah. Step 1. Would you have done it had it not been caught on video? And 2, why is the man who had his knee on another human being's neck while they were subdued already and killed that person not at least detained while this is being investigated? It is top-down reinforced behaviors. You wouldn't have people, you would not have a certain segment of society right now marching around in shitty khakis and polo shirts and tiki torches thinking they're badasses if somebody at the highest level of government wasn't reassuring them that it was okay. That's institutionalism. That is authoritarian politics saying this is behavior that we will not just turn a blind eye to, we're going to be completely okay with it and might even reinforce it. Yeah. And this has been going on for, well, since the inception of this country. And it is such piecemeal to address it. We've made baby steps at times. You know, the type of racism that exists on a day-to-day basis is a far more casual, under the breath kind of thing, but it's still there, and it's still just a dark stain on us. But the institutional behavior still exists, and this is
Aaron,
just another example of it.
Aaron, I am first of all, I'm going to turn on my mic.
There you go. That works.
Wow. Oh,
I also have a I've got a rebuttal to that, and I agree with you 100%. And I think I know, or at least I have an idea of the reason why this shit is still here. But before we do that, my friend,
it's halftime,
and it is time, because we're going to need this, I think, for where I'm going next.
All righty.
It's your honors this week, my friend. Bartender of the week.
Big shout out to Stevie at the Midtown location. Need to get back in there and see her. It was been a couple weeks back, and got some of those fine, tasty wings from our favorite watering hole. They're doing a great job. They have their patio seating available again,
yes, they do.
As well as in Fisher's. And never mind the debacle going on Mass Ave. So shout out to one of my favorite bartenders, and Slancha, my friend.
Slancha. Love you, Stevie. So, you know, as you said, I'm a historian and very amateur at that, but I'm learning and I'm growing. And I have learned in studying history, there are two threads that bind all of history together. One is morality and one is money. And if you look at those two threads throughout the history of our country, money has always won out. Money has always won out. When we had a moral decision to make, when they were writing the Constitution of the United States, when you had a decision in which you could have included representation from everybody that was there in that country and truly made it a country for all the people, instead of just writing it down in words, the only people that were at the table were white land-owning rich men. And I don't care what anybody says. Oh, well, it's interpreted a different way, or that's not the spirit of, no, that's bullshit. Because I can't go to a police officer and say, you know what? Yeah, I was speeding a little bit, but the spirit of the law really is, if I was reckless. I can't do that. That's bullshit. And you cannot apply that to that. The Constitution, in my opinion, was not written for people like us. It was written for the elite. And I'd love to just debate people all day long on that, but you're not going to convince me different or otherwise. Aaron, once we got past that, and once, the 13th Amendment was written, there was still a little clause in that amendment that said, we give up slavery, but you know what? The fact is that if you're a convicted felon, you're pretty much a slave again, which began the great first mass incarceration of African Americans for vagrancy, for loitering. Yep. They were thrown in jail so that they could continue the workforce. And then after that, what happened? Well, sorry about that. But you know what? How about try on these Jim Crow laws for example? Try these on, see how they feel. It's always in America's history to throw a but in at the end of an apology. We have never, as a people, received an apology, just straight up apology from America. It's always been followed with a but. It's always been followed with a but. After the civil rights, whole campaign and things like that, we thought, hey, we're home free. Yay. Wrong. War on drugs, which basically got so many African-American men for just petty little stuff thrown in jail. Yeah. So you eliminated an entire generation of fathers. And so now we wonder why people are so scared of African Americans. Well, it's because, number one, you have a generation of African American men who were put away. You had a generation of African American women who were placed in this terrible situation of having to hold everything together. And then you have this generation of African American kids who are like, well, I'm not really sure what it is to be a dad or to be a father or to even be a man. And so now you can then inject into their minds what you think they should be. Yeah. And so we get this image of a thug. We get this image of a super predator that we had before. And it just keeps perpetuating and perpetuating to the point that you even have African Americans who are scared of themselves. We're scared of us. And so how in the world can we expect anybody not to continue and perpetuate that cycle when we actually have bought it hook, line, sinker? And the problem is that when that happens, and when we do have leaders that stand up, like a Stokely Carmichael, like a Fred Hampton, like an Angela Davis, and Assata Shakur, the full weight of the country, Martin Luther King, the full weight of America is thrown at them to get them to shut up. I mean, how are you going to have a leader like Fred Hampton back in the 60s and the 70s, who's in charge of the Black Panthers of Chicago, which, by the way, folks, if you think the Black Panthers are a violent group, you need to go do your homework. The Black Panthers were the originators of before-school breakfast programs in Chicago. The Black Panthers were the ones who stood on the Capitol building in California and demanded rights for Black Americans. Yes, they were armed. Oh, that sounds familiar, doesn't it?
But which was the first time the California enacted gun laws
There you
because
go.
of Governor
Ronald Reagan.
Ronnie.
So you really have to do your homework. But you have this leader in Fred Hampton that was set up to not only unite black and white people, but he had Jewish people and he had Native American people and he had Hispanic people all come together, allies together, trying to better the city of Chicago. And what happened? J. Edgar had the Chicago police come in and kill the man while he was sleeping in his apartment in cold blood, because they were so afraid. And that's it, brother. Fear is at the center of the reason why blacks are under fire in America today, is fear. And the fact is that we breed that fear into the training that we give to our police officers a lot of time. I'm with you. I have so many guys and gals who are police officers that I respect, that I love, that quite frankly, I talk to on a regular basis. But they know the way I feel about this. And if you are silent during this time, you are as much as to blame as the people who actually committed the crime. There is a brotherhood. Yes, I get that. I totally understand, just like you, Aaron. But there has to become a point to where we as a country, not only black, white, Native American, Hispanic, Asian American, not only us, but professionally, teachers, lawyers, doctors, police officers, EMTs, all of us come together and say, look, these institutions that we have set up in order to protect people have now been turned into a place where criminals are being protected. It's turned into a place to where if you do not comply with the wishes of the FOP, you are looked at as an outcast. You are looked at as an outsider. And that has got to stop.
I just don't understand why, if you're a brotherhood, why you don't expect accountability and the adherence to a strict code of behavior, and why you aren't outraged when it turns out that a white woman in Central Park with her dog off a leash totally fakes a 911 phone call to make it seem like she's under threat by a fucking bird watcher, by the way.
Yeah.
Hey, that's a new one on me. But the super threatening black bird watcher in Central Park is coming for you. And you can tell the way she intentionally ratchets up her voice and makes it seem like she's under direct threat. Because what people who are threatening you really do is stick around while you call 911 and film you. But if I'm a police officer and I arrive on the scene at that, and then I later find out that what happened, that footage, I'm pissed at that person too. You put several people's lives in danger. You made us think that there was a potential violent attack to which we would need to respond with possibly, terminal force, fatal force, and you're making it up because you didn't like the way a guy talked to you in the park?
Yeah. I don't get that. I have always been taught, Aaron, and I know you were from the same camp, because quite frankly, you are one of the most intelligent people I know. And the fact is that if you don't know about something, you ask questions and you create a conversation. I'm like, the fact is that instead of our police truly being there to serve and protect, I believe that the police force has been militarized by the legislation that has been enacted by a white male dominated government over the past 200-300 years. And the fact is that now police officers have so much pressure on them to seem like they are, the ones that are in control and the ones that are in charge, that they automatically go to force.
Yeah. There's no
And they have
de-escalation techniques. I know they're taught them, but in instances like this, it seems to be an afterthought. Like you have
Exactly.
subdued this person that you consider a criminal. By the way, he was arrested for suspicion of forgery, which means
Yes.
I'm gonna guess here. I'll wait for sure until more details come out. But suspicion of forgery makes it sound like he was faking IDs, which
Well, yeah.
okay, yeah, you can arrest a dude for that, but you've now got him in handcuffs on the ground,
Yes.
pinned next to your own vehicle with at least 4 other police officers standing around you,
Mhm.
and you still have your knee on the back of his neck. He's pleading for his life. There are other people pleading for the man's life,
Yeah.
and you act as if this is normal procedure. I've seen police officers put their knee in the center of a man's back in order to
Sure.
pin him down, and I
Right.
think that may be normal procedure. I don't know. Feel free to correct me in the comments. But
No.
I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure a knee directly to the back of a person's neck is not a recommended technique, which also, by the way, Eric Garner
Yes.
choked to death using a hold that had been deemed to no longer be legal. And I know we're fucking splitting hairs here.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
the police are meant to protect and serve, and this man was selling Lucy's on a street corner.
Come on, man. I'm like, and the
The
fact
dude
is
in Minneapolis is selling fake IDs. Okay, deserves to get arrested. I don't have a problem with that. But you don't have we again.
no, Aaron.
It sounds like I'm picking on cops, and I don't want
No.
to. It's got to be one of the most difficult jobs on the planet. But at the same time, as a citizen, I should be able to have a reasonable expectation of behavior.
Yes.
And look, let me have an aside here. We had an incident in Indianapolis a couple weeks ago where some dude was joyriding his ass off and clearly was being a menace to society. Was driving his car reckless, led police on a pursuit, got out of his car and ran, and apparently pulled a gun on them. Okay? And a lot of that was caught on film, was on Facebook Live. And there was a lot of outrage until the whole, hey, he pulled a gun. And I'm going to hedge my bets here and say, if he pulled a gun and you had to shoot him, that's fine. I don't see how.
Have we seen video confirmation?
No, we haven't, and it wouldn't be the first time. So I'm going both ways.
I know where you're going. I know where you're going.
But at the end of that video, which I've watched the video several times, and supposedly an officer says, "Going to be a closed casket, homie." You know what? I'm not mad about that. If I'm a cop that arrives on a scene after my colleagues have been led on a high-speed chase, and there's a foot pursuit, and then a guy pulls a gun, I'm sorry, your adrenaline's going. I'm not mad about that. I'm mad if the man did not have a gun and that this is some bullshit. I'm mad that there weren't other ways to de-escalate what went on. And that's it. Like, it was an aside. I want to get back to the main issue with Minneapolis.
Mhm.
You've got this guy subdued. You no longer have to do anything. A man with his hands cuffed behind his back is no longer a threat. The worst thing he can do is figure out how to get up and run.
Yeah.
There's no reason for any sort of lethal force here. I have a right as a citizen to that opinion, and it's completely unacceptable for what I saw in that film.
Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to circle back, and I agree with you. If there was a gun, if you were stupid enough to pull a gun on police, okay, yes. However, number one, like I've said before, I still have yet to, and this is part of this whole thing, Aaron, and this is stuff that I think people need to understand. The Black community as a whole, and once again, I take that back. I take that back. No, I can't do that. It's hard for me at times to trust what the police say, because I have heard stories of people having guns. I've heard stories of people having drugs, and actually coming out and saying, well, they really didn't have a gun and they really didn't have drugs. And, oh, wow, he did have a permit for that. And it is gaslighting at its finest for people to to make, and I'm not saying you, Aaron, but for people to make comments like, well, he probably had a gun, or, well, we heard gunshots and the police said that he had a gun, or the police said he had drugs. I'm like, that is, for me, it is very much a gaslighting thing. The fact that I'm like, oh my God, it literally is. If I happen to get nervous and I happen to get scared, I'm not going to drive away. I'm not going to run away from the police or anything like that in my right mind. But there's a video of a young man who ran a red light, and the police tailed him back to his house, and he got out and he laid on the ground, and the police were asking him to get up. And the young man was so scared, he said, "No, I'm not getting up." And to some people, mostly white people, it's like, well, no, just get up. You're listening to what the police officer said. But for me, watching that video, I felt exactly what that young man felt, and said, no, I need to stay still. They can come and get me and stuff like that, and I may not die. But if I stand up and I move some way, or if I trip some way, or if I reach for something, I'm definitely going to die.
Evan, there's footage from a year or two ago of a guy who was a caregiver for an adult who was autistic or developmentally challenged, something like that, and that person was kind of acting out and created an incident. And when the police arrived on the scene, the black caregiver complied completely, laying on the ground, and he's basically saying, look, you don't understand, this guy is not of full mental faculty. You need to bring somebody here who understands how to deal with this. And he's laying on the ground, and I don't think he even moves. He may pick his head up, I don't know.
Sure.
And somebody shoots him, and a police officer shoots him in the leg, and the guy says, "Why did you shoot me?" And the officer can be heard to say, "I don't know." That tells you that there is this ratcheted up, like you said, militarization of police forces. We're led to believe that every gangbanger's got an AK-47 and a bazooka behind the door. And that may be true in some places, but we literally just had an incident where a woman was killed in her own home in a raid.
Yep.
They had the wrong house and already had the correct person in custody, and this woman was shot and killed in her own home.
Yep.
Now, people who want to say police make mistakes, indeed they do, although this is a pretty bad one. I'd get in trouble for that at work. I'm just saying.
Yeah, exactly.
When the when the TPS reports aren't there, I get in trouble for it.
Yes.
So, killing the wrong fucking person should seem to have sort of some consequences to it. And it is a tough job, but I'm not seeing this happen on the same level in the white community.
No.
I'm not seeing it happen on the same level in the Asian community. I'm not seeing it happen on the same level in Jewish communities. Not even really seeing it happen on the same level in heavily entrenched Muslim communities.
Right.
This plays into this whole, we going back to day one.
Yeah.
When black people were sitting here on boats, they're savages, they're beasts, they can overpower us at any moment. And to this day, that's pervasive. That's why Tamir Rice, 12-year-old boy playing with a gun, was perceived to be a threat.
Yes. And Aaron, that is absolutely the point I'm trying to make, is that from early on, African Americans have been portrayed as this, brooding, just like you said, savage type of people who have to be controlled. And so, we were given the right to vote. But the fact is that we weren't given what we were promised as far as, reparations go. We can talk about reparations all day long. And I'm going to tell you something, man. And the fact is that for an entire group of people, and I know I'm going to get comments like, well, what do you think we should do? Do we think we should give millions of dollars to every black American? I don't know. We just got through giving a stimulus package to everybody. We came up with the money for that. We just built a brand new Space Force. Where did the money come from that? You know what I mean? I'm like, so I don't know what that means. But what I'm saying is this, is that when, at least when I as a parent have to apologize to my kids, I make reparations with them in two ways. Number one, I verbally say it's my fault. I apologize. And there's no buts. There's no if, and, or buts about it. The buck stops with me. I screwed up. And then number two, I always try to give them an opportunity to say how they felt, to talk to me about what they then need from me as a father. You know, sometimes, yeah, sometimes like, well, can we go get ice cream? Well, yeah, okay, we can go get ice cream, sure. But other times it's just like, well, Dad, in the future, can you just listen to us first before you pass judgment on us? Yes, I can do that. We have never once gotten that from America. The closest we have come, and I know a lot of people disparage disparage Johnson as a president. And yeah, maybe he was an asshole, but he did sign in some legislation that was huge for minority populations and also for women. Because contrary to popular opinion, guys, women are not minorities. They're not, but we treat them as if. But once again, that's another episode.
Well,
but we have, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I think something that kind of personalizes it is in the white community, when you were a teenager and your parents came to you and they had the talk. It was about, hey, don't get her pregnant. Use a condom, make sure you're good.
Yeah.
What's the talk in the Black community, Evan?
I'm so
it's different, isn't it?
Whew, man. Shit. You know, shit. I feel like we're at the pub, Aaron. I'm sitting there crying.
It's the goal, brother.
It breaks my heart. Shit. The constant fear that I have, and quite frankly, I'm very fortunate. My girls are very light skinned, they're very fair skinned, and you know, they can, people say they can pass.
And they're girls.
Which
slightly,
quite frankly, doesn't
slightly
necessarily
less threatening.
Well, yeah, slightly. You're right, slightly, because you know they're 28% more likely to get disciplined in school than white girls. But you know, to think that as a 46-year-old man, the night that the young man was killed in Indianapolis, I called my mom, and the first thing that she said that came out of her mouth was, "I'm so happy to hear you." I'm 46, man. And there are so many, you know, Black mothers and Black fathers out there who, young people, if you wonder why they are worried about you, this is why. Is that there is no sweeter song in the on a night you have to say me, Aaron.
It
I
says a lot
fear.
about where we are, man. It says an awful
Yeah.
lot about where we are, that if anybody doesn't understand what just happened, don't know the answer to that question, I will happily tell you about it and make it very, very fucking clear what the difference between those two conversations are. And if you've never had to have that conversation, you can't possibly understand. And it illustrates the two Americas. I think Evan may be frozen here. Oh no. Well, oh, there he is. Hopefully we get Evan back. So, lost you there for a second, buddy.
Hey, man.
I'm sorry to hit you like that. I
No.
as I said it, I knew it was a good question, but it was a better question than it was intended to be, and I apologize for that.
No. You don't need to apologize for anything, man. Like I said, it breaks my heart because, I know the fact that you asked that question because you're concerned. And it breaks my heart that question isn't contemplated and, talked about more than what it is.
Yep.
It's sad that question has to even be asked. I thought about it in my own childhood, and I'm like, man, my parents would have not had that. They would have had no comprehension of having the talk and how it's morphed into something that is, literally life and death. If you can just imagine, sending your child out into a world that they already have 2 strikes against them. And it takes that one final strike for them to really be, for them not to come home. That's the feeling that Black parents have when they send their kids out. And I know that, there are parents out there that are like, well, I fear for my child too when I send them. And I get that. But to already have 2 strikes, you're Black and you're male, and literally you could count Black and female as 2 strikes too, because it's like, there's a whole stereotype there.
Yeah.
But anyway, man, my laptop just went crazy and it's booting back up.
It's all good.
So I'll stay here until
I
get it back, and then I can do the Hey Aaron segment. But man, crazy.
Well, if there's a thread running through all of this, hopefully it's that I think there are a lot of people out there who want to be allies, who want to do better,